Without further ado, please use that practiced fantastic enthusiasm from before to bring Shannon back to the stage.
Thanks, guys. Are we ready? Session 2, light. So, ladies and gentlemen, for those who just come in, you're seeing the vibration spectrum there in its completeness, as far as we've mapped it out anyway. There are a few new developments, but they haven't hit mainstream science yet, and we have atomic particles all the way up the top there, with stupendous numbers and many, many, many zeros of vibration. And as we looked in session 1, the wave nature of numbers, and we use numbers to define everything. So we focus on the light spectrum, and on the left side of this poster outlines that for the kids, EMF means electromagnetic fields or frequency, and this is in the light spectrum. And we look at the way the body, how the body responds to this spectrum, how the body produces this spectrum. It moves at the speed of light, 300,000 kilometers a second. It's a bit faster than sound, isn't it? So without further ado, let's jump and do a deep dive. Let's look at EMF.
Light. It's all around us. But what is it? Where does it come from? And what does light have to do with color? Light is a kind of energy that travels in waves. It is made when matter is heated up or gains energy. Excess energy is released, in part, as light. This energy is called electromagnetic radiation. When we talk about light, we usually mean visible light, which is the light that we can see with our eyes. But there are more types of electromagnetic radiation that are invisible to us, including radio waves, microwaves, X-rays, and gamma rays. Together with visible light, all these types of radiation are called the electromagnetic spectrum. All electromagnetic radiation travels in waves, but different types have different wavelengths. The wavelength of electromagnetic radiation, or light, is connected to how much energy it has. Light with a longer wavelength, like radio waves, has less energy, while light with a shorter wavelength, like gamma rays, has more energy.
So there you go, back to our poster, and you see a big eye there, and only in this little slit of the vibration spectrum is the visual wavelengths of electromagnetic waves. Can you believe that? That teeny little spectrum is what our eyes see and what the sun shines. Now just under that is the infrared, infra meaning under, and you cannot see that, but the sun produces that. And then above that is the ultraviolet spectrum. Let's talk about the rainbow colours. The primary colours there, from the bottom there, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo and violet. These are the 7 primary colours of the rainbow, and they are no accident. The sun gives off white light primarily, just a beautiful light with the whole spectrum of colours. But what happens? How do we get that rainbow? And why does it curve like that? Well, there's a reason. Because the lowest vibration is red. So where is red? It's on top. That means it's got a long wavelength, so it'll be larger, longer. And then right at the bottom is our ultraviolets, indigo, purpley at the very bottom. It's a shorter wavelength, so it's pulling the light and bending it, so everything makes sense. And then when you shine a white light through a crystal or a prism, you get the full colour spectrum, because all white light is all the colours in one hit. Bang. Right there. So let's look at this prism dispersion of light. Why are leaves green? When we shine light hits, say, a green leaf, it's absorbing all the colours except for the colours you see. It bounces those colours off, and that's why we see red. So green, sorry. So if you see a red car, It's absorbing all the other wavelengths and bouncing that red color to your eyes. It's a vibrational frequency refracting to your eyes. So, is seeing hearing or hearing seeing? And then if we go back to now sound 1, session 1, smelling is actually hearing. Amazing how the body works. Right. Now we looked at the extremes of sound in session 1. Now we look at the extremes of light.
Today, we're at Caltech because in a building over there is a camera that absolutely blows my mind.
Now, we filmed at some very high frame rates. We're talking up to about 500,000, which is
Not to be sniffed at.
serious frame rates. Their camera puts ours to shame and does 10 trillion frames per second. What are we doing here? This looks all very complicated.
This is the world's fastest camera.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's the world's fastest camera. So, there you go. Just as easy as that.
This is the light traveling through the milk vial at 10 trillion frames a second. This is the reason we came here.
Yeah.
10 trillion frames a
So
second.
cool.
Wow.
So on the bottle video, the lights seem to be going the same speed, but then you've got to remember that the scale of this is much smaller. So
Look
this
at
is
the wave
1
nature
millimeter,
of
it
it.
says here, is the distance, whereas before it was an entire bottle, which shows you that we're actually recording light traveling through such a small amount of space.
And it's so slow now that our picosecond has a decimal place to the 100th femtosecond.
That's blowing my mind for a start.
Amazing, isn't it? So there you go. There is light slowed right down to the frequency it's moving. What about the brightest source of light on planet Earth? Let's have a look at this. Synlight.
This is synlight, an array of powerful arc lamps, 149 of them. Together, they can pour out the searing light of 10,000 suns.
Synlight is the largest artificial sun in the world. It's a facility which is able to generate an enormous amount of artificial light for scientific purposes.
Today, the researchers are letting us take over this artificial sun. We want to see if they can barbecue this.
An original German bratwurst, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah? Okay, then we accept this challenge.
Dmitri protects the drill with some foil wrap. Then, they make sure no one's in the hall. And to prevent anyone from wandering into a wall of sudden searing heat, they lock all the doors.
Now we come to the experiment with the sausages.
I just start the power supply. Now it's running, and here we go.
3 lights.
Ooh, they are highly smoking. I think that we should stop the experiment now. So maybe our facility is not best for making sausages.
The sausages were cooked for only a minute more. Right away, you can smell the tang of burned meat.
Yeah, a touch too much.
Tasty.
It was a bit too long.
I think it's okay if I don't taste it.
It's maybe not the right tool to make sausages, but we have a lot of other useful applications.
Like testing technology for an emission-free future.
Amazing, eh? Synlight, S-Y-N, if you want to look further into that. Now, the full video, they actually turned it down to 1 light because 3 was just too much. And could you imagine all of those lights on? You would not want to be in there. But that's nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, the tokamak. This is China's artificial sun, can reach temperatures of up to 120 million degrees Celsius. The tokamak. It's a device which uses a powerful magnetic field to confine plasma in the shape of a torus. Boom! Being developed to produce and control thermonuclear fusion power. Guys, this is a mini star or sun on planet Earth. Now this is China's version. They've broken the record of the 120 million degrees Celsius. There is another one in France, and it's not far behind it. And the problem will be storage, not creating power at that heat. Now the sound you're hearing is actually from a fission reactor, It's not from the actual tokamak. I put it there because it sounded great. But it would sound very similar because it's based on similar technology. And there's some gorgeous images of what this thing looks like. Let's look a bit further into the tokamak.
The artificial sun is a revolutionary device developed by Chinese scientists and engineers. On May 5th, 2023, China launched an experimental device called the HL2M tokamak. It is essentially an experimental nuclear fusion reactor that is designed to replicate the process that powers the sun. The concept behind this device is to generate energy from nuclear fusion in a way that is safe, clean, and sustainable. This is a major breakthrough because nuclear fusion has long been considered the holy grail of energy production, as it has the potential to provide a nearly limitless source of energy without the harmful side effects of nuclear fission. However, achieving nuclear fusion on Earth has proven to be a major challenge, as it requires temperatures of over 100 million degrees Celsius, which is hotter than the core of the sun. The HL2M tokamak is able to generate temperatures of over 150 million degrees Celsius, which is 10 times hotter than the sun's core. This is made possible through a complex system of magnetic fields that confine and control plasma, which is the superheated gas that is used in the fusion process. By containing and controlling the plasma, the tokamak can create the conditions necessary for nuclear fusion to occur.
Something out of a sci-fi movie, eh? This is reality, guys. Unbelievable. You would definitely be able to cook some sausages in that thing. All right, let's get back to our map here that is taking us on the journey that is now sound. Are you enjoying it? Did you expect to see the tokamak? I bet you half of you have never heard of the tokamak. Anyway, back to our chart here. So let's have a look at the bottom part. This is the radio spectrum. This is 30 hertz to 300 gigahertz. And then at session 1 there, we looked at brainwaves. Now, brainwaves are an electromagnetic frequency that can be measured, and they're right at the bottom there, 1 hertz all the way up to 40 plus hertz. You would be in a pretty near dead state at about 1 hertz. And when that goes, you're brain dead. 0. So, and as we work up the spectrum, we get into what we call these EMF biofields. Now, I couldn't fit, you'll see a picture of a man there, and it's got a toroidal field. We're going to look at this field. This actually operates very broad. I couldn't fit it on the chart, but it operates from 1 hertz to 3 terahertz. And I'm going to show you actual proof of measurements of this field. So the Schumann resonance is a natural electromagnetic frequency that the Earth produces, and it's produced by strikes of lightning all around the Earth, and it generates this resonance, and us humans are in perfect balance in resting state with the frequency the Schumann resonance produces. So that's right at that bottom there. And then as we work up the top of the chart there, you can see a picture of a man with a phone on his head, and you can see the radiation penetrating through. This is an electromagnetic radiation, and the yellow there is the penetrating the skull. Now, that was actually a military man where they did this testing, so you could imagine what this does to children's heads. You could imagine AirPods in the ears, straight through the minds. Anyway, let's look at this torus. This is the hero of session 2. This is the mathematical equation for the torus. And that's what it looks like. Hypertrochoid pattern and hyperboloid pattern. This is the pattern of the torus. And our body, when you are born, when you're in your mother's tummy, as soon as your heart starts beating, you produce a toroidal field that comes from the little baby's heart. And it's the first thing we hear, basically. And that's that field in your body when you walk into a room and someone's been talking bad about you and you know something's going down. You sense it. That's your field, just like boom. You know exactly what's going on. You didn't know that's how it works, but that is an electromagnetic field which we can measure. So magnetism and dielectricity are the main tools or powerhouse of the toroid. Now, dielectricity, think electricity and put a di in front of it. Everything in our universe, the powers and physical forces are all to do with magnetism and dielectric forces. So the skeleton of the torus is the vector equilibrium, cuboctahedron, and we're looking at some of this geometry coming up. So let's zoom in to the human body and look a bit deeper. And we're heading into the nucleus. And they're quarks. Very, very small. Session 1, we realised just how small quarks are. All right, what are we looking at here? A lot of boxes. This is the periodic table of elements, and hydrogen is the number 1. Now notice when you learn to read these, they're in numbered order, and the further down the numbers you go, the heavier something is, the faster it hits the ground. Now this is much like sound, and up top there you see a string vibrating. That is the whole string vibrating. And then we have harmonics. So if we half that and half it again and half it again, these are called the harmonics. The same thing happens with the electrons. They're electron harmonics. Now, if we look at the atomic model, we call them electron orbitals. So the first orbital is the fundamental, and then its first harmonic will be the second orbital, and then it goes out from there. And as we get to the heavier elements, they're very complex harmonics of the electron, which makes things have a high mass and will fall to the earth much faster. So what you're looking at there is a gorgeous 3D model of the argon atom, a true model by Foster Gamble, and it's basically a series of toroidal fields, and that's what the electron orbitals would look like. It's a wheel within a wheel called the wheelworks. And guess what? This table's been updated by my boss there, General Gould. He actually updated this table. He's an absolute genius. In 2004, General Gould, along with Stephen Alvin Roebuck, remodeled the periodic table of elements into a tetrahedron base where all the elements are in triangles. So in basically when you box something, it means it's off the page, it says nothing. Well, they put it in a triangle so it can be moved and then pointed where it needs to go. So it's a much more usable model. On top of that, the heavy elements, where you can bombard with electrons to divide and create weaponry, they remove that and change them into positive elements that mankind can use. So this is an amazing breakthrough for humankind, and the world is only starting to learn about this now. Right, what you're looking at here is a supercell. Now this was made by Ken Wheeler. So it was originally made from the ferrocell, which was made by Tim Vanderelli. Now let me explain what the ferrocell is and the supercell. It's a device where you can put it over a magnet and you'll see the toroidal field of the magnet. It's a stunning invention. But Ken Wheeler created the supercell with different components, so it's magnified and has a much more accurate field of view. And all you do is you get 2 plates of glass, some oil and ferrofluid, which is a nanoparticle iron particles, and you squash it in there, and then you put LED lights around it and you hold it over the magnet, and this is what you get. Magnet, boom, toroidal field. Look at that donut. So it shows the constructive and deconstructive lines of interference. Now, there are some skeptics of the supercell and the ferrocell, and they say, oh, it's from the LED light points, they're getting bent. It's not true, because if you hold it up to the sun, you see the same pattern. So this is a new invention, and I can't wait to make one with my son. Now, the skeptics, here's iron filings, and when we put an electric charge through these poles, look what happens. Bzz. So let's move to the EMF field. So this is called the NEMF field, and this is what our heart produces. So it's called the non-linear EMF field. When we're looking at the majority of frequencies on this chart, they go in a straight line. Non-linear means they bend around like in a torus. So your heart produces a EMF field, an NEMF field, that is 5,000 times stronger than what the brain does. Every organ in your body produces a toroidal field, but the heart is the strongest. And basically, organs, so some organs are solid, some are hollow, and they work together. The hollow organs are like a coil, and you can actually unwind, and I've seen this, the muscle of the heart, and it's literally like a coil. So we are biochemical electrical beings of resonance. And they broadcast our emotional state. And that's why you can sense someone's feeling down, because we are communicating in ways, not just visually, but we are sensing as well. Now this brings me to one of my heroes of Now Sound 2, Dr. Maria Kumon. This lady is an absolute genius, and her portfolio and her resume is extensive. She's a professor, teaches quantum mechanics, physics, everything you can imagine. She released a paper that showed the non-linear electromagnetic field of the human body, and she's developed sensitive equipment that measures this field. So the key findings in this paper: the human body produces a toroidal field, or a torus field. In a positive state, the field is very strong and it spins clockwise. In a negative state, or weak field, it produces a weak field and spins anti-clockwise. So there's a direct correlation with this field that she measured based on our emotional state. There's a fear mode and there's a love mode, and we have measured it. And when we're in a love mode, our DNA is in a higher oscillation of frequency. And you'll see this on our chart. In a love mode, the frequency is in the upper light wave state, and in the fear mode is in a low vibrational state. And it coincides with the electromagnetic field. Let's look a bit deeper here.
There are only two emotions that humankind experiences: fear and love. All other emotions branch either directly or indirectly from these two emotions. Fear has a long and slow frequency vibration to it, while love has a very rapid and high frequency. There are 64 possible codes of amino acids in our DNA structure, made from 4 elements: carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen. By any means of logic, we should have all 64 codes activated within our DNA structure. Yet we presently only have 20 active codes.
And of these 64 possibilities, it appears that only 20 of these codes are turned on right now for us, the 20 amino acids. There is a switch that turns off and turns on where those coding sites lie, and that the switch for that turning off and turning on is what we call emotion. And this is the first time that we've ever seen the patterns of emotion directly physically linked to human genetic material. Well, fear is a long, slow wave of emotion. So this wave of fear is a long, slow wave and touches relatively few sites on this DNA. So an individual living in fear is limited to the number of antennae that they have available to them, whereas an individual living in the pattern of love, this is love in DNA. You can see it's a higher frequency, shorter wavelength. We have many more potential sites for coding along that genetic pattern.
So that was from Esoteric Agenda documentary from 2008. So we've come into this knowledge a little while ago, and we're only now starting to really see the tangible evidence of what is going on here. And there's a brilliant chart there showing the love and fear mode. So when we're in a fear mode, what happens? If we stay in that fear mode, we will get sick. If you stay in that love mode, you will be well. It's saying good vibes, bad vibes. It's actually based on vibration. Is there a mathematical equation for cause and effect, for karma, for sowing and reaping? Yes, indeed there is. Here it is. And we'll see what symbol this forms. So there you go. There is the mathematical equation for cause and effect. It is most certainly a thing, and what you put out comes back to you. It is not only a saying we use, but it is a natural law. So we need to be careful of the thoughts we put out and the words we put out, because things, they just come back around. We need to stay in a positive state, and you're either in a love mode or a fear mode. There's only two emotions, as you saw in that video, love or fear, and then every other emotion is a derivative of either of those two states. And guess what? We have a choice to be which state we're in. We have challenges, but we got to work to get ourselves back into these higher vibrational states so our DNA is activated and we stay healthy and happy. And that concludes my segment on the Taurus. All right, I'm very excited to present to you a new segment that we are presenting for the world. And there's not much information about the body's crystals. You are a walking, talking crystal machine. And you're going to find out some things about your human body that you would never have guessed. So down to the cellular level, the coating, that gel-like substance, is liquid crystal. Crystals basically are a radio antenna. Our bones, ears, and their negative states like kidney stones, they're a crystal. They're not good. But most of them are good. And they have piezoelectric properties. And I found this guy to talk about the piezoelectric effect from Now Sound 1. If you have a lighter, where's that spark coming from? If it's not a flint, where's that spark coming from? What happens if you compress a crystal or you strike a crystal, it gives off a piezoelectric effect. So this is a nice chunky crystal that I'll be doing an experiment with. But when you compress that and when you put it in these orgonite molds, the resin shrinks and it compresses it and gives a piezoelectric effect. You know, your airbag that is triggered is from a crystal. It gets compressed in that moment of impact and it gives off a little spark and triggers that airbag to go off. You know, watches, this is in electronics all over the place. So it's a piezoelectric effect. Excellent work, that guy there. So, you know, crystals are that. So that is one property, is a piezoelectric effect, and that's the produce an electrical side of things. So let's first look at the inner ears, and then you'll see up there that is a picture of the inner ear, the semicircular canals. Now these are for your balance. So when you tip your head like this and like that and like that, the fluid races to one end and tells your brain, aha, you're on that angle and you're on that angle. Now in the lining on the ends of these is where these calcium carbonate crystals are. There are probably millions of them in your ear. And these have a very, very strong piezoelectric effect. Now, there is a condition called BPPV. Who's heard of that? Benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. What happens is one of those little crystals gets loose. So you might have bumped your head, or things happen. One of them gets loose, and then it tumbles. As soon as it tumbles once, it tells your body you're on a different angle. And these things will go dum, 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 and you're feeling sick and dizzy for no reason. You literally just move a bit out of bed and this crystal will have a little piezoelectric effect because they're so sensitive to any pressures. They give off a charge, like a little spark, boom, telling your body where you are. Our body is so phenomenal. They make military devices, gyroscopic axial devices, modelled on our auditory periphery. And I did post an excellent brain chart mapping out the whole human brain and system, showing all these connections. And how the military have developed all these different components based off the human body. We are highly exceptional beings beyond measure and unequivalent to anything. So that is just one part. Let's move on to the next one. Hormones. Different hormones, they'll fire a series of crystals into the fluids. Here is melatonin. And under the microscope, this is melatonin crystals. Under light micrograph in polarized light of crystals of the hormone melatonin. This hormone helps you sleep at night. And then we have the opposite, serotonin. This helps us feel happy, feel awake. And we'll talk about the interrupters of these a bit later. Adrenaline. This is art inside your body. Absolute art. Someone's showing off. Amino acids. It looks like someone just went with paint. And look at these. Here's the insulin crystals. These guys love sugar. They go hunting for sugar in your body. And guess what happens when you drink those aspartame drinks or those diet drinks that say no sugar, but they got artificial sugar in it? Guess what happens? Your body goes and releases a heap of these and they go hunting for something that's not there. Not good. You're better off having normal sugar, guys. All right, we're ready for the next one. Human bone. So I'm currently studying crystallography with the MIT open courses, and it's like music. The crystal structures have very tight bonds, and the difference between mineral and a crystal is the atomic structures are very ordered and structured, and they have motive like music. These ordered structures where you can flip it that way in there, and that's what determines a mineral and a crystal. They crystallize and form these highly ordered atomic tight structures. So bone also has piezoelectric properties, and I have a peer-reviewed paper talking about the piezoelectric properties, mostly made of flexible protein collagen and the hard mineral apatite. So the two elements are arranged in nestled repeating patterns. And then we'll finish up on the pineal gland, and we're going to park here for a bit and talk about this pineal gland. You're looking at crystals in your pineal gland. Now, for those who don't know where the pineal gland is, it's right in the center at the bottom of your brain. So you're looking at calcite crystals, and there are 3 different types in the pineal gland, and the size there is 2 microns. Electron microscopy, energy dispersive spectroscopy, selected area electron diffraction, and near-infrared Raman spectroscopy. So there's 100 to 300 crystals per cubic millimetre in the pineal gland, and the pineal gland's only about that big, 15 millimetre, 10 to 15. So the three types, cubic, hexagonal, cylindrical crystals, dual terminated, hexagonal. Don't need to go to the crystal shop anymore, guys. You're a walking crystal. All right, let's look a bit further into this pineal gland and just how important this is.
Near the center of the brain, we find a tiny pine cone-shaped gland, which may be one of the most wondrous parts of our physical body. We know that the pineal gland produces serotonin and melatonin, neurotransmitters which regulate waking and sleeping cycles, as well as playing a crucial role in mood. But it may also be true that the pineal produces DMT, or dimethyltryptamine, a neurotransmitter which creates a natural psychedelic state of consciousness. If so, then this little gland plays not only a crucial role in our psychological well-being, but it may hold the key for unlocking the true potential of humanity.
So actually 5 to 8 millimetres in size. So it's only literally like a long grain of rice. This teeny little thing has so much power over our state, you would not believe it. So it's shaped like a pine cone near the epithalamus, the lower centre of the brain. It's also known as the third eye and the seat of the soul. Now, there's a reason why it's called the eye, and we'll look at that in a minute. And even in religious texts, both Eastern and Western philosophies, it's been regarded as the God organ, the pineal eye, third eye, eye of Shiva, eye of Dangma, etc. And then even over 3,000 years ago, in the book of Genesis 32:30, Jacob's ladder, he's talking about creating this pathway, and he called the place Pineal, which means face of God. And then even Jesus talked about it. It's referencing the eye, singular, is the lamp of the whole body. And if that light is dark, the whole body is dark. So let's just briefly talk about this melatonin and circadian cycles, which helps us sleep. So when we see light, the pineal gland releases that beautiful crystal you saw before, melatonin, and it helps us feel sleepy. And then as the light comes in, serotonin is released into your blood and makes you feel happy and awake. So Barbara O'Neill is one of my favourite health practitioners. She says leave the curtain open just a little bit. So as that light comes in, your body goes into these cycles. Now guess what makes your body interprets EMF frequencies from your computer, from your router, as light. That's why a lot of people have trouble sleeping, because the brain doesn't know the difference. It's just going, there's still light, I'm not going to shoot out a lot of melatonin just yet. So the key is controlling the electromagnetic frequencies in your household and in your lives, and we'll talk about that soon. All right, let's talk about the properties of this amazing pineal gland. It has piezoelectric properties. As that guy who explained before, when you put pressure on, it releases an electric field and becomes a super sensitive EMF radio antenna. So when you exercise, what happens? Up the spinal column, spinal fluid puts pressure on the pineal gland. So exercise, we feel happy. Deep breathing in your sleep. What happens when you go into these NREM and REM cycles? Non-rapid eye movement and rapid eye movement. You go into a deep breathing just naturally. Now I've learned, I feel myself going from normal breathing and I start switching to the heavy breathing, and I'm still, only because I've analysed it, I'm going into that. I'm heading to theta land, yay! And I know literally within 5 minutes I'll be out to it, providing no children are knocking on the door and coming in. When you sneeze, achoo, pressure, pineal gland, you get a little high. When you yawn, why is a yawn contagious? Well, it is a radio antenna, so maybe something's happening there. When you ablute, the kids, when you go to the toilet, you're putting pressure. And for the adults, sexual climax. Boom, piezoelectric. So the next main property is piezoluminescence. All right, we're a bioluminescent creature. When you turn the light off and you go into a dark room, if you get super, super sensitive photographic equipment, your whole body is glowing because your skin is also a crystalline structure. So going back to the pineal, this piezoluminescence properties is light sensitive and phototransduction path is multi-neuronal. Pineal hormones are upregulated in the dark and downregulated in the light. The gland is thermoregulatory and regulates the sleep-wake cycle. 7 neurons between the retina and pineal gland have been established to relate the effect of light and other rays on its secretion. So, the third eye, or is it the first eye? Maybe it's the first eye. What's the next property? Piezochromism. It can see the full colour spectrum of the electromagnetic, boom, 430 terahertz to 750 terahertz. Amazing. Piezochromism, it sees the full colour spectrum of the rainbow and more. Pineal gland is lined with pinealocytes. These are similar to rods and cones in your eye, and they are photoreceptive. But the most exciting thing to me is the SHG properties of the pineal gland. What is SHG? If you shoot a light through these certain crystals, right, a certain light, it will upscale, it will bump up the frequency of that light and shoot it at a higher frequency. Those crystals of the pineal gland do exactly that. They are a second harmonic generator, and here is a paper that just broke the world saying, oh my God, these crystals have SHG properties proven in the lab. We upscale things. Now let's have a look at this little short video to give you a bit more understanding.
I've mounted on the bench here my nonlinear crystal. It's on a post which is attached to a rotation stage. Currently the laser's off, so nothing very much exciting is happening, but the reason it's on a rotation stage is so that I can vary the angle of the crystal with respect to the laser beam to get maximum green light output. Effectively, we're lining up the crystal lattice with the electromagnetic wave itself from the laser. This is a process known as phase matching. Anyway, let's turn this laser on and see what happens. And just like that, we've got a brilliant green beam emerging out of this crystal. To prove that this is actually coming from the crystal and it's not a beam coming this way across the bench, I can block off the infrared beam with this infrared detector card and the beam will cease.
See, there's an infrared light at one end and it upscaled it to green.
Absolutely fantastic. Very, very nice. This is a sight to behold, it has to be said. Second harmonic generation. Beautiful.
So there you go. If we look at the spectrum on the chart, infrared. So he was shooting the lowest frequency light wave, and boom, it upscaled it more than double to green, because the lowest is red, then orange, and then you're getting into the greens and yellows. So bang, whatever your pineal gland is just upscaling things to another dimension. All right, unfortunately, there's some negative aspects of our pineal gland that we need to be on guard. And that is brain sand. It is an actual thing. Now, you might be the sort of person who's gone on the net and gone, pineal calcification, and you get limited results. Do you know why? Because the medical fraternity has renamed this to all these different jargon names, so you're not going to find much on it. But anyway, it's called brain sand, and this is a calcification of the pineal gland. And what you're looking at here are these mulberry-like structures in that research paper that they found lined all around the pineal gland near these crystals, intermingled with the crystals. And it's basically like a calcified calcium structure, and it has no correlation with the pineal crystals. Nothing at all. It has no use in the body. It's actually a cause of many, many, many degenerative neurological diseases. On paper, really bad. So if you want to find out more, they're called pineal acervuli or simoma bodies. So it's a calcified granular material in the pineal waters, in the pinealocytes, and it's a mulberry-like structure. And from even the age of 15, they start calcifying. And it increases with age. Now, here's some samples here showing calcification. And you can see up top there, it's just riddled with this calcification. It's called hydroxyapatite, with the chemical component name HA. So hydroxyapatite, which is a calcium apatite, has an ion with the chemical OH. If you just swap that OH, it can be replaced by fluoride or chlorine. Boom. So these samples on the right are from age 15 and older. So young kids are not immune to this happening. And you see the charts. So what are the symptoms of having a pineal gland full of brain sand? And it's in other organs as well. No dreams, or you rarely dream. A lack of empathy. That is just a lack of care for people or things. You have trouble sleeping, so your circadian rhythm, the secretions of those other crystals, melatonin and serotonin, have trouble being released. They're being hampered by these brain sand. Another symptom is you become apathetic to truth. So that means someone will show you evidence upon evidence, proof, and you'll be like, meh, I don't care. That's apathy. And then the most important to me is you get cut off from higher dimensions, cut off from God, cut off from source, whatever you want to call it. But when you actively go, I'm going to detox my body and specifically target this amazing gland, which they call the third eye, some phenomenal things happen. What was that thing I said about brain sand? Was it hydroxyapatite? Well, we brought out a new toothpaste in 2023, ladies and gentlemen, and it's hydroxyapatite toothpaste. Bravo, yeah, bravo. Unbelievable. Absolute nasty stuff. Okay, it's medically proven it's brain sand, so why are we putting it in our body? Anyway, I don't want to get worked up. I want to stay happy in the love mode. Toroid. So, how do we detox? And I'm just going to briefly park here because I've tried this, which works, and my colleague Jonathan from Future Foundation has tried some of these products too, and they do work. So micro plant powder gold is just a great all-round detoxer, and the most important is an iodine, a nascent iodine. And there are just two. I don't make any money off these guys. I just know they work. And when you detox your pineal gland, the first thing, some people just get a sudden rush of light, and they'll be just eyes closed. They'll be in prayer or meditation, and this brilliant light comes, and then just a burst of dreams. My whole family dream all the time. Healthy pineal glands. My 8-year-old son has significant dreams, and they do have meanings, and that's a whole thing that I'm writing a book at the moment about the dream state, the ethereal states of dream, and we'll release it one day. So monatomic Tesla activated plasma iodine from one of my heroes in the medical industry, Dr. Bill Deagle, Nutri-Medical, nascent iodine. Then there's detoxidine, and that is an atomic iodine. Let's Mike Adams give the last word on this segment.
It's well known that fluoride interferes with functioning of your endocrine system, the glands. These glands are the gateways to spiritual connection, to energetic layers. And I think what's really going on here is that fluoride shuts the door to spiritual connection.
So if you kind of keep the brain locked down, whether it's fluoride in the water, shut down the pineal, aluminum to disrupt the nervous system, these artificial sweeteners, then we're just in a pen.
We clearly are not as aware as we could be of our potential and are not living a life that probably is as healing or as generous or as nurturing as we're capable of doing.
This is why you get so many people today who are somehow convinced, and mainstream science is teaching this, that you are nothing but a biological skin bag, and that you do not have any existence beyond the physical. You have no consciousness, you have no spirit, no free will, and when you die, you're dead and gone, and that's permanent. That's a very dangerous philosophy.
Boom. So, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the biocrystals and pineal gland. I hope you enjoyed that. And if you don't believe a word I said, boom, there's 6 peer-reviewed papers to back everything I just spoke about. All right, let's move on. The bioelectric systems. Wow. Do you think you were amazed by the crystals in your body? Well, put your seatbelt on for this part. You are a walking electrical being. And now this is another hero of Now Sound 2.0, Dr. Jerry Tennant. All right, this guy, my gosh, he is an absolute genius. Now, he has over 13 patents of medical devices, over 13, and surgical instruments. He holds a doctorate in natural medicine. He's board certified in ophthalmology and ophthalmic plastic surgery. That's to deal with the eyes. Now, the poor guy doing laser surgery on someone wearing their standard mask that they used to wear, fragments went up his nasal cavity and the patient had some disease. Anyway, he ended up contracting encephalitis and through the laser surgery, and resulting in 3 untreatable brain disorders, untreatable, and bleeding disorders that manifested in spastic movements. So do you think as an ophthalmologist he could start working on someone's eyes, particularly with the laser? The disorder made him sleep 16 hours a day, and he was only lucid for 3 hours of a day. And he was like, this is untreatable. I'm either going to work out how the body works and heal myself, or I'm dead. So he researched, and being the genius man that he is, he developed the healingisvoltage systems, and wow, the body is just phenomenal. So here's the poor guy in his 16 hours a day. Beautiful little puppies, those gorgeous little souls, keeping him company while he was really unwell. So during the 3 hours, he decided, right, while I'm lucid, I'm going to get in and find out if I can just learn to heal one cell. And he worked out that the body is indeed an electrical healing system. Let's have a look.
Dr. Jerry Tennant began his first in a series of lectures on the intrinsic connection between physical health and well-being, and the complex electrical circuitry throughout the human body. The notion of the body as a, quote, electronic device seems at odds with conventional medicine in the 21st century. And yet it seems that virtually every day, we learn of new scientific breakthroughs illuminating the effects of electric and magnetic fields on living cells and organisms. Recently, Dr. Tennant offered a series of presentations as part of a continuing medical education class for naturopathic doctors in Arizona. Dr. Tennant began laying the theoretical foundations of his life's work, which has led to the establishment of healing protocols to restore the body's natural voltage. Specifically, Dr. Tennant explored the human body's capacity for regeneration, a phenomenon seen in some animal species throughout nature. As he continues in this initial lecture, he explains how the body's electrical circuitry and its ability to regenerate is governed by the available voltage in one's muscles and organs.
Hence the name healingisvoltage. So the first sort of thing he says is pH, right? We've heard of pH. Is a measure of voltage in a liquid. It's an electrical, but in our schools we're not taught about the electrical side of things, where 0 is 7 is neutral. We're just taught where you're either acidic or you're alkaline, you've got to be around number 7. However, the voltage needs to be absolutely right for cells to function. Now, if the cells are not in the right voltage, they're not going to be absorbing oxygen. Boom, the pH has got to be right. What happens when you walk barefoot on the earth? There's an exchange going on, and it's electrical. We're going to look at that in a minute. So what did he discover with these cells? Right, so for normal operation of cells is negative 25 millivolts. This is normal operation. If your cell are not, there's a bit of variation, but if it's too far out, your cells are going to struggle to operate. When a cell duplicates or divides, it needs to be negative 50 millivolts. So this pH must be slightly alkaline. An acidic body is very sick. It's the wrong voltage. So he's outlined 6 muscle battery packs that our body naturally produces. Number 1, the sympathetic parasympathetic systems, which is these automatic systems. Like, do I have to think about my heart beating? No. So that's what number 1 does. It just does it, these automatic systems. Or digesting food, you don't have to think about it. It's an automatic system. And then these work in partnership. So 2 is the lung and the large intestine. 3, heart, small intestine. 4, spleen and stomach. 5, kidney and bladder. 6, liver and gallbladder. And he's mapped these perfectly because you're going to be blown away.
Now, an additional concept to understand is a Tesla resonating circuit. The father of electricity, of course, was Nikola Tesla, and in the 1800s he developed what's called a Tesla resonating circuit. What you do is you take a capacitor and wire it on a box to a coil, and thus you have this resonating circuit. And all electronics are based on these Tesla resonating circuits. They have the ability to basically talk from one to another. Now, in the body, half of our organs are capacitors and half of our organs are coils. Again, the capacitor is a small battery and coils create impedance. So in a Tesla resonating circuit, electrons flow from the capacitor to the coil until the capacitor is empty, and then they flow back from the coil to the capacitor until the coil's empty, and they oscillate back and forth. So in the human body, our organs are wired together in pairs to form Tesla resonating circuits. So the parasympathetic is always wired to the sympathetic, the lung is always wired to the large intestine, the heart is always wired to the small intestine, the spleen is always wired to the stomach, the kidney is always wired to the bladder, and the liver is always wired to the gallbladder. Now, because all of these things are tuned at our birth, it's important to try to keep all of our organs, because if you go in and remove part of an organ, let's say you go in and remove your gallbladder, well, now the liver gallbladder circuit is no longer in tune with the rest of the body. So the body tries to accommodate and compensate for that as best it can, but it's never quite the same because you've lost one of your important Tesla resonating circuits. So do the best you can to try to keep all of your organs.
Yeah, no, don't pass out in a back alley of Thailand or something, Keep your organs. I love this stuff. This is awesome. You're a walking Tesla resonating circuit. There's 6 resonating circuits forming 7 electromagnetic resonances in your body. You might be seeing where I'm leading to with this. There's no accident. All right, what's next? The fascia. Right, when we strip all the skin off the body, this is what it looks like, kids. How exciting. The fascia is like the shiny stuff, when you carve up a turkey and it's that shiny thing wrapping around the muscle. Your whole body, from your toes to your fingers to your head, is wrapped in fascia, and it is an electrical circuit system based on the acupuncture meridian circuit. The acupuncture meridian circuit. There's something to there. So fascia is a semiconductor where electrons flow through the fascia only in one direction. As we exercise, energy is transported. Remember, what's a piezoelectric effect? Our bones and our muscles. So as you're active in your moves, energy comes out into these Tesla resonating coils, and then your body draws from these 6 packs what it needs. boom, straight to your cells. So, unfortunately, there's 5 causes of these muscle battery packs. Let's look at these 5 main causes. Number 1, scarring.
So you should recall that our muscles are rechargeable batteries, and they are stacked one on top of each other like stacking batteries in a flashlight, and then surrounded by a common sheath of what's called fascia. And it is actually a semiconductor. So what in the world is a semiconductor? A semiconductor is an arrangement of molecules designed in such a way that electrons move through them at the speed of light, but only in one direction. So the way the body is designed is we have batteries surrounded by a wiring system called fascia. Now the problem is that the fascia is supposed to be like this so that electrons can go through them easily, but if you put a scar or a tattoo in, and it touches the fascia, it does this. So now your wiring system is blocked. So even though the battery inside may have electrons, they can't go anywhere because of the scar or the tattoo. And so many illnesses are contributed to in great detail by scars and tattoos. Fortunately, we've figured out ways to help minimize that effect. One can put an essential oil blend that we've developed on the scar or tattoo, and then use scalar energy, and that will realign the molecules so that now electrons can pass through again. And so we find that scars are have a significant effect on shutting down a power supply to any organ that is damaged by that scar or tattoo.
Damn, I shouldn't have got that big dragon on my chest. We have the essential oils. There's always a way around. All right, number 2, hypothyroidism. All right, so hypothyroidism is not enough thyroid hormones, T3 and T2. So these actually control voltage in cell membrane of the mitochondria. T2 controls the voltage in the mitochondria. Yeah, this is epic stuff. Number 3, dental infections. The teeth are the capacitor to the brain and the whole connected to the whole body. If you have one root canal sitting there, that is a dead thing in your body. Now, the bizarre thing is, in the medical industry, they know you never leave dead things in a human body. So why is the dental industry leaving dead things in the human body? It's creating a short circuit. So get rid of those root canals, clean them out, get rid of it, and let your body recover, because it's a short circuit in these meridian circuits. Number 4, emotional wounds. Dr. Tennant found that these cause an magnetic field to block the flow of electrons. Past traumas create emotional wounds. Being electrical beings with toroidal fields, if we have a trauma or an emotional trauma, it'll create a magnetic blockage. And notice how I mentioned scalar field. We'll get to some real good solutions for you coming up. And then the last one is toxins. Boy, are we in a toxic society. Well, there's no shortage of toxins, and even if you live a healthy life, you need to detox regularly, because these also cause a blockage of electron flow in your body. So, our next segment, we're going to talk about scalar waves, but before we do, a big solution of Dr. Tennant's system is things are either an electron donor or an electron stealer. And guess what is a donor? Those gorgeous little puppies and cats are little electron generators. And you notice back to that picture of Dr. Tennant in bed sick, his dogs were all over him. And that was one of the keys that made him start thinking about these sort of things. When people are sick, your dogs like to come close because they're electron donors. Right? And then they go into the sun. You watch animals, they love going into the sun because the sun is also a donor. The sun will actually feed you electrons and give you energy. Just being not just vitamin D, we're actually talking about an electron exchange. Walking barefoot on moist sand is the most powerful exchange, electrical exchange. And it's proven your pH regulates changing the pH electrical voltage in your blood by walking barefoot on the ground. And what are we all wearing? Shoes. Not me, I got an earth strap on mine. Earth. E-R-T-H-E. I don't get any money from them, but I recommend it. Okay, what else? Running water is an electron donor. So if you're in a shower or you're in a fresh stream, that's why running water is always the best water. Still water, don't drink it. They're the two rules in the bush. Contact with trees and plants, they donate electrons. So the old term, you're just a tree hugger, something to it, hey? So electron stealers is when you're decoupled from the earth, which is pretty much everyone in the Nike generation of the most awesome shoes. Why are they not making, earthing shoes? When you're driving, you get very tired because you're decoupled from the earth. You take your feet off, get some earthing straps on your car, and you can sleep on earth mats, which I do. Sitting in a still water like a bath will drain your energy. Very relaxing though. And being in high wind is an electron stealer. A mother holding a sick child all day. Husband comes home, here, take the baby. When you're with sick people, contact with sick people, they will actually drain electrons from you. There's an exchange. 100 people holding hands is very powerful. There's an electron exchange. Whoever needs energy is going to get it. Whoever's got too much is going to lose it. It's going to happen because we are electrical beings, biochemical electrical beings of resonance. That's my saying. That's it. You guys can look up Dr. Tennant's stuff, and that wraps up our bioelectric segment. All right, some of you are thinking, what are the solutions? You only talked about some. Let's talk about scalar waves. All right, this is the most exciting solution for mankind. So scalar waves, just to recap if you didn't see now sound one. Scalar waves are the medium for electromagnetic frequencies to propagate. Like we need air for sound to propagate, well, scalar field, this subtle fields is what the electromagnetic fields need to propagate in. That's why they can propagate in a vacuum. It doesn't matter. In water, as long as they have that underlying field of the ether. All right, scalar waves, they transcend time and space. And they're instantaneous. They cause the molecular structure of water to balance up. Positive increase in immune function in mammals. They're a communication protocol of the universe, instantaneous. And the beautiful thing is, Einstein started to see this, but let's have a look at scalar light here to explain more. So thankfully our body natively generates scalar waves. Our cells, there's a whole communication that works in these biocrystal radio antenna structures to receive scalar energy and waves. And without this communication protocol, we would not function. Now consider this with these twins, what happened?
There are certain unexplained phenomena that occur between twins that even modern science simply can't explain. Take the curious case of 7-year-old identical twins Kaylee and Allie from Pennsylvania. They were born just seconds apart and are inseparable, like so many identical twins. But when they were 5, a peculiar incident occurred. The sisters were at a playground. Kaylee was on the trampoline and got hit in the face, suffering a painful black eye.
Her heel hit right here in the eye.
Allie was playing in another area, totally uninjured, but inexplicably, her eye started showing signs of bruising in the exact same place.
Oh my goodness.
Their mother rushed the twins to a nurse who noticed it too. When she got home, she thought it was so strange, she picked up a camera to record it.
Did you get hit by anything?
No.
Does it hurt?
No.
One's thoughts affect DNA. The first experiment we'll discuss was carried out by Mr. Cleve Baxter. The subject of the experiment was placed in room A, and the subject's DNA sample was collected and isolated in room B. Mr. Baxter then monitored the subject's mood changes as well as the electrical reactions of his DNA sample in the other room. When the subject in room A was emotionally stimulated, his DNA in room B concurrently responded. Feeling inspired, Mr. Baxter wanted to find whether this connection between the DNA and its owner would be affected by distance. To verify this idea, the subject and his DNA were separated by 560 kilometers. Mr. Baxter then conducted the same experiment, and the subject's DNA reacted similarly and simultaneously. How could this be?
How could that be? Does that just blow your mind? The twins thing, you know, I've heard of this happening before. Or I've heard of some people having like a vision and someone's having a plane accident on the other side of the world. It's an instantaneous communications protocol via the scalar wave that transcends time as we know it. Now, this is not a new thing, you know, going way back to the 18th century and the 19th century. These great minds, they recognized the ether as a subtle medium for propagation of the EMF wave. Faraday, Thomson, you know, going back to the late 1800s, Faraday's work modeled the electromagnetic forces as etheric forces. And there's Maxwell, who come up with the brilliant equations. He considered light as an electromagnetic vibration of the ether. And then we get to here. We sort of saw it, and then he went, nah, it's just spooky stuff, and sort of fobbed it off. So he called it action at a distance. Now, this is called quantum entanglement, when the twins have that thing. When twins are born, they share a very high structure of shared DNA. Okay? So, and as you saw with that experiment, if you affect your DNA here and some of your DNA is over there, it's going to affect it over there. And that's what's happening with the twins. So he called it spooky action at a distance because nothing can travel faster than the speed of light in the theory of relativity. And then we got to this guy. Boom. Tesla, he brought it all back again. And he proved, he ran his car off this etheric field. And it hit the newspapers, and you can see now sound for one. Now sound one for that. So he brought scalar waves back into the mainstream. And he was working on the Wardenclyffe Tower to bring this power to everybody. Let's have a look at this.
After 16 years of struggle, Tesla's doomed tower was out of time.
And even when Wardenclyffe was about to be dynamited, he even appealed to the President of the United States.
But his appeal was futile. On July 4th, 1917, the first dynamite charges were heard in the town of Shoreham. The explosive force dislodged the colossal structure from its base and afterwards sent the cupola crashing to Earth. The wounded tower, still standing in fragments, would require several more attempts to finally bring it down. The landscape of Long Island would be forever altered and the potential of the enigmatic genus's World Wireless Center forever untapped.
He dynamited the tower and sold it off for salvage. He got, I think, $1,500, I think, for the lumber and the iron. He had $100,000 worth of equipment there, and Bolt just let it all go to scrap, so a lot of this stuff was lost.
I think the incompletion of the Wardenclyffe project was very much emotional for Tesla. He saw, how is it that such a good idea not come to fruition?
You see things like that and you wonder, how can humanity be so short-sighted and so stupid? But we're dealing with ignorance all the time. Schopenhauer said, against stupidity, even the gods themselves struggle in vain.
It's just a terribly tragic moment in his life and in the life of the world. We lose out.
I think without doubt that he felt that he had not only unfinished work, he had an unfinished half of his lifetime.
So guys, in a scalar field, any living organism that has DNA absolutely thrives beyond what you can imagine. Now you're probably thinking, how do I get scalar waves? You can buy scalar wave generators or you can make them yourself, which are called, the other name is orgone energy. Now, I'm obviously we make our own at Now Sound and through the Pro Sound Foundation. These are scalar wave generators that I trust. I don't get any money from them, but I trust these units. And then they also have some other properties, which we'll talk about soon. So this is the one on the right is the Spooky 2 scalar kit, and on the left is the Rasha. Now, this is similar to a man called David Sarita, which we're going to look at in a minute. David Sarita developed similar technology which combine frequencies, which will come in handy. If you want to make scalar wave generators yourself, these are passive, so the other ones are active. And now in the Telegram, Now Sound Telegram chat, I dropped in a video of a Tesla diagram if you want to explore making your own active scalar wave generators, and it all comes down to Tesla coiling. So there's a project called the Bali Gifting Project. Bali is a very peaceful place with no accident. www.baligifter.org. Every cell phone tower and water body in Bali has been gifted with an orgone generator. Everyone. And that project's been going for about 5 to 8 years. So it's awesome there. If you buy these online, I don't really recommend it unless you know where you're getting it, because if you entangle their DNA and they get sick, and it does happen, and I know someone who's has a good story in the foyer, might be able to have a chat with them about his experience of quantum entangling with these devices. You've got to be very careful. They need to be healthy people, and you can't just make this stuff because of your electromagnetic field. You can have bad intentions, and voodoo uses these protocols. So I also like to plug S from S&A's Orgonite Creations, who's over east. I 100% trust S. You can buy his Orgonite and his orgone generators. He has pendants, under pillow ones, and let's have a look at this.
Hey guys, so I'm going to do a little experiment here for you guys, just to show you a little thing that orgone does. Hey guys, so I wanted to show you where I'm at with my orgone experiment in the lemons. It's been a month.
We're going to use Jackie's DNA, put them in here, and we're going to check them out energetically as to how they can contribute to your overall energetic well-being. Her Q-tips, and she's entering down with some saliva. We can again use saliva, we can use hair, we can use nails, we can use photographs, signatures. Jackie's DNA, her frequency, it's pointed to her, it stays focused to her. Pointed to the camera, not his DNA, rejects it. Pointed to Reinhardt, it's not his DNA, it rejects it, it's not his frequency. Pointed at Jackie, once again, we're tuned to her frequency, just like every radio station has its own frequency. Jackie, just move over sideways a little bit, watch it follow her, okay? So anywhere within about 600 feet, no problem, I'll find her. Okay, I'm going to walk backwards. And as I walk backwards, it stays tuned to her, it stays pointing at her. But as I reach the edge of her energy field, watch this, they're starting to open up. So this is the edge of her energy field. I'm in her energy field, I'm at the edge of her energy field, or aura, or whatever you want to reference it to, okay? All right, so let's just start. We're going to pick one of the OGs. Okay, this is a very basic but very powerful OG. Plant them in your gardens.
Orgone generator.
Put them anywhere near your Wi-Fi. So I'm going to walk backwards once again. And you can see how it increases the energy field. All right, we got a good doubling of her energy now. Okay, so this is where we have it. Inner energy field at the edge of your energy field.
Your field. Right, guys, just to conclude this segment, I have developed the first molded custom in-ear OG, and I'm wearing one in my right ear right now. I just popped it in while we did that segment. And we started an experimental program for hearing healing, and boom. There's a 10-year test there with the same clinic, and I've got a 10 to 15 decibel healing in my ears. As a sound engineer, this is unheard of, and there's my clinical results right there. This is just my testimony. And, you know, you could give off maybe 2 to 3, 4 dB as an accident, but 15 decibel improvement in hearing is unheard of, because they say when the stereocilia goes flat and dies, it does not regenerate. So there is my addition to that, and that concludes the Scalar-Waves, ladies and gentlemen. All right, we've got 2 more segments to close up. The Bio-Vortex-Energy-Nodes. Now, I was very skeptical of this, and upon speaking with Dr. Maria Kumon, she sent me some 2023 research, and she has measured the EMF fields coming of the body, and as a world first, you are the first to see the actual frequencies coming off the body, and we have mapped them out thanks to the amazing work. So the Bio-Vortex-Energy-Nodes, otherwise known as Chakras, it means to spin. This is ancient energy centers that we've known about, but now we have measured them. And, you know, I was reluctant to look at this as a Christian background. We're told, oh, don't touch that. Well, how about we learn what it's about and then go from there and see, is there a function and a purpose? And if there is, well, let's maybe work with it. So to get a full picture, let's go back to Mr. Tennant. So he had the Tesla resonating circuits.
In this slide, you can see again how these are wired together and create these electromagnetic fields, which generate the power and have the ability to talk to each other. And each of these circuits run at very specific frequencies.
They operate at very specific frequencies. So they are energy centers created from our organs. So this paper Professor Kumon sent me just blew my mind, and she had developed sensitive equipment to measure them. She put out this other paper on an early view that I got to see, where she had noted the frequencies that she'd measured them. She calls the aura of the body our spirit. She just point blank calls it the spirit. And she's been also studying Kirlian photography, that is an electrical photography, and she photographs this spirit or aura around the body, and that is a photo of her with the aura, and she's mapped them from 1 to 12, and she says that any higher magnitude than 12 cannot be achieved on planet Earth. And she's rated that at number 9. She also measured myself, and maybe one day over a beer I'll tell you what she said. It was very interesting. It was good. It was good. Okay, so she describes the 7 chakras as vortices and anti-vortices of the emotional aura and spirit, non-linear electromagnetic fields called chakras. They are in alignment with Dr. Tennant's findings, and we have the precise frequencies. Boom, there we are. So there is a root chakra that operates at 4 hertz. Now, I contacted Professor Kuhlman, and I said, I believe the chakras are an electromagnetic frequency around the Schumann resonances. They're not an acoustic, primarily an acoustic frequency. And she went, boom, here's a paper, here's the equipment, and this is what we got. 4 hertz root, sacral 6 hertz, solar plexus 10 hertz, heart 12 hertz, throat 16 hertz, pineal gland 96 hertz, and the crown chakra 972 hertz. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There are the frequencies. Now they do indeed align with the frequencies of the color spectrum. 430 terahertz to 768. There it is, and you might want to watch the video again and pause on those, because these colors, there are 7 primary colors of the rainbow. It is no accident. This is the white light spectrum broken up from low frequency to high. They match up. This is crazy stuff. All right, now you want the actual sonic frequencies. They're coming up in Project 432, and it is out of this world discoveries, guys. All right, not only that, Professor Kuhlman worked out the acoustical activation sounds from the voice. And I wrote back to her, I said, I concur 100% with your findings. And you'll see the next 2 videos why. The root chakra down low, ooh, sacral, oh, solar plexus, or heart, ah, central heart, everything is ah, throat, air, pineal, and crown E. They're activated by just normal speech, guys. There you go. What's a baby's first sound, guys?
Priscilla says that all newborn babies communicate by using 5 universal sounds, and all babies all over the world use the same sounds. The words sound very similar when you first hear them, but Priscilla says that after listening to them a few times, that you, as a mother, can learn to quickly identify each one and understand what your baby is saying to you. First, take us through those 5 sounds, which are?
Okay, the first word is ne.
Ne.
And this is the word for hunger.
Ne.
Oh, so cute.
Oh, okay, so that's ne, for hungry. I'm hungry. What's the next word?
The next word is ow, and that's a word for sleeping, and this is based on a yawn reflex.
Uh-huh.
So if you yawn, you go, oh.
It's around the E-R-O. It's more of an air in there to me.
Very good. Now, you've uncovered a word that you say means discomfort. What is that?
Yes, this is the word he, and you're listening for the H part of this sound. The next sound is air, and this is a lower sound. So if you imagine that your stomach is tightened down here and you go, breathe in to your stomach and go,
come do something. Yeah.
The next one is eh, And this is when there's an air bubble in the top part of the chest and the body's using a reflex to get the air out. So it's
Heh and eh. They're hard to distinguish.
They are. But you're just listening for the E part of this sound, the eh part.
Okay,
So-
let's hear. And that means I want to burp.
Yes.
Okay, let's hear it.
Oh, so cute. So it's all around the throat chakra. Yeah. No accident. And to drive it home, let's look at the original languages and...
So the scientific community have actually caught up and figured out that the oldest language in the world is Hebrew. And they mean Paleo-Hebrew because, and I'll get into that in a little while later. But yeah, the oldest alphabet has been identified and it's Hebrew. So this is Paleo-Hebrew. It reads right to left. So the equivalent of the letter A is up there in the top right. And it's a pictorial language.
Okay, so it's all heart. What's the first organ to be produced? The heart. Heart chakra. No accident there, guys. All right, so here is, I'm just adding David Sarita's cube to the Scalar-Wave, active Scalar-Wave devices. Now, the beauty is with these, you can punch in those exact frequencies that I told you before. And I'll be sure to send these guys those frequencies. David Sarita, I trust 100%. You can punch in these frequencies precisely. And that concludes the Bio-Vortex-Energy-Nodes, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Geometry and sound linking in with Project 432. Guys, our left brain we have a parallel processor brain. That means our left brain functions one way and our right the other. The right is the artistic side. The left is the mathematical geometric side. When you hit with mirror neurons, that means when you hear sound, there's mirror neurons that go boom, and the left side of your brain is just going maths, geometry, angles, interpreting the exact same time, mirror neuron. Let's have a listen to this legend.
Understood that our brains and our left temporal lobe and our right temporal lobe, that's exactly like right here, right on both sides of our head. And one side is the seat of music. On the other side of the brain, so the left temporal lobe, it's where we process mathematics. So there's this concept of mirror neurons, right? And how people can mirror mimic. The same thing happens within our brain. And so you could say that the visual arts would be in the occipital lobe, in the back of our brain, on the right side. And then what we call the material sciences would be the representation of that manifested form, art imitating life. So then we have biology and chemistry and physics over here, right in the back of our brain. Music is just the geometry that we experience with our ears.
All right, so let's look at some geometry. We have the triangle there. Now, no matter how you squash that triangle, it's always going to sum to 180 degrees. Shapes and geometry correspond to sounds. They are absolutely inextricably linked hand in hand. There is sound, there is geometry. There is no other way about it. We look at the square. These are foundational geometric shapes. 4 times 90 sums to 360 degrees. And then if you squash it to diamonds, you're still going to get 360 degrees. So we're going somewhere with this, and there is the sum of the angles. So the triangle equals 180 degrees, square 360 degrees, pentagon 540, hexagon 720, octagon 1080, decagon 1440. Let's make the music notes frequencies exactly like that. And we add in just one shape there, the heptagon, which has 900 degrees. Now let's turn it to 900 hertz, turn them into hertz. On the piano, we get this sound. Wow, hear that precise tempered? That is the first 6 partials of the overtone series, guys, and it came from geometry. That's why when you resonate the sand on the plate or the water, it goes naturally in these geometric shapes. And where's 432 hertz? It is right in this tuning. That's why there is no mathematical justification for 440 to fit in. It means you're going to make this triangle slightly wrong. The square is going to be slightly wrong. It's a fraud, guys. There's no other way about it. That's why 432 Pythagorean tuning was based off the maths and geometry. So 432, and they all sum to 9. 4 plus 3 plus 2. 6 plus 3, 9. 180, 1 plus 8, 9. They all sum to 9. They must sum to 9. Any sound you can think of will match up to the geometric shape.
A circle, for example, represents a perfect octave. The 12 points of a regular dodecagon align perfectly with the 12 notes of the chromatic scale. Connecting these points with straight lines creates a dodecagram. Any line connecting 2 points on the circle represents an interval, the simplest form of chord. Triangles represent triads, augmented, major, minor, and diminished. Tetragons, or quadrilaterals like squares, diamonds, rectangles, kites, and various trapezoids, represent tetrachords, major 7th, minor 7th, dominant 7th, minor 7th flat 5, dominant 7th flat 5, diminished 7th, and augmented 7th, some of the most commonly used chords in music. Pentagons represent pentatonic scales, major, minor, modal, and others, and pentachords, with the major, minor, and dominant 9th being the most common. Hexagons represent hexatonic scales, such as the whole tone and minor half step. Heptagons represent heptatonic scales, the most commonly used scales and modes. Heptagons also represent tetrachords with upper structure triads. Octagons represent octatonic scales, such as diminished scales and some dense octachords. Larger polygons represent larger scales, nonatonic, decatonic, and hendecatonic. The 12-sided dodecagon is the largest polygon used in music and represents the full chromatic scale. Chords and scales are transposed by rotating shapes around their center and transformed by reflection over one or more of 12 possible axes or...
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we transition to Metatron's cube and then Project 432. This is the shape of all shapes. All the 5 platonic solids are in this shape. And that includes the tetrahedron, which is the Star of David. It has 6 edges and 4 sides. Then we have the hexahedron, 12 edges, 6 faces. The octahedron, 12 edges, 8 faces. The dodecahedron, 30 edges and 12 faces. And the icosahedron, 30 edges, 20 faces. I had to change this presentation a few times because of just novel discovery. And then Robert goes, boom, check this out. Melchizedek's 5D Tesseract, novel geometric form, revealed 2nd of June. It's on his website now. 3D model coming out. Guys, geometry shapes our reality. Right? All of our reality, our 3D reality is in Metatron's cube. So this is the grand thahedron elevated derived from the octahedron. It has 23,040 degrees of angles and 128 sides. Here's some of his sketch up. And he said in the private group, guys, clearly Metatron's cube possesses all potential quantum states in evolutionary geometries, including those not comprehended yet. And let's consider Mr. Carson here. And there's a great interview with Billy Carson and Robert Edward Grant. And Robert Edward Grant is just red pilling him. And Billy's just going, it's great. I'll drop it on the chat.
Because if you go in all the higher dimensions, we're in the 3rd. So if you draw a line on a piece of paper, that's the 1st dimension. If you then connect those lines and create a house on a piece of paper, that's a 2-dimensional structure, or you can move it into a computer. Anything you see in a computer that looks 3D is actually 2D. And because we're in the 3rd, we can see down into 2D. We can see all the way down, obviously, into 1D, and we can manipulate those dimensions from our higher selves. The fourth dimension is something called a tesseract. If you go into the ancient text, it's Metatron's cube, meta, M-E-T-A, metaverse, right? They got that from Metatron's cube. And this fourth dimension is really something called a quasi-crystal. And this quasi-crystal in the fourth dimension, it casts a shadow, and the shadow that it casts, it creates the realm that we're living in here. We're living in a shadow of a higher dimension. That shadow creates the third dimension. It actually creates a fractal of it, creates this fractal holographic matrix that we're actually maneuvering in the third dimension right now.
My good mate calls it as above, so below, on earth as it is in heaven. So these geometric forms cast a shadow on our reality, forming our reality. And there is the Metatron's cube in a 3D form, and look, it's casting a shadow in the 2D form we see as Metatron's cube. And that concludes that segment. Let's move to our final segment, Project 432. So, ladies and gentlemen, since our launch of Project 432 on the 7th of June, it's received 267,039 views. That's nearly 300,000. Just our channel is 12,000 views since 16th of January. It's a very young channel. Robert Edward Grant has been loving Now Sound material, and he's got over 400,000 followers. And April 10, my colleague Tony Mazzotti, he contacted me, goes, "Oh, Robert just posted your video and it's gone hot on Instagram." I thought, well, I don't even have an Instagram profile. Better make one. So there's now a Now Sound IG channel. Join it up, like it. And anyway, it got 7,000 likes in 2 days. And it's just going hot, guys. So I'm speaking to a global audience, and you guys have the privilege of hearing this information today, you know. So even the Postmaster General of our world, full colon Russell Life and J colon Gould, period, shared it on his personal Telegram channel, Project 432, and he sent me personal congratulations. You know, this is big news, and these musical tunings are changing our world because it's elevating people to a higher state. All right, we did our third piano tune on the precise piano, and listen to this. So just as we were recovering from getting our head around the precise temperament tuning, on the 16th of May 2023, Robert drops a bombshell. Another new tuning, precise temperament tuning, 24 note for 432 hertz and 528. And he called it the musical wave of time. Guys, this is changing our reality as you know it. This stuff activates those junk DNA, turns them on, and it's derived from Metatron's cube. And here's a video of Robert explaining this tuning.
What we're actually looking at here is a musical clock. And this musical clock can be derived as follows. Each of these are musical notes. And each of the musical notes on this 24 quarter tone chromatic scale starts off with here of 514 hertz, then 528, then 544, 561, 576, and 594. Now you can see these dots that you see here. This is actually in this quarter tone arrangement. So 514 is in a 432 hertz precise temperament tuning scale. I left off the decimal extensions because I just wouldn't have enough room to place them here. And 528 is the precise temperament tuning value for the 528 hertz precise temperament tuning scale. The two wrap into each other just like DNA, and they end up right at the half or semitone or quarter tone positions of each other. And then I realized looking at it that this is exactly what we're seeing when we look at the notes of an octave. We have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then repeating to C again. And that's 7 notes within the octave. But then we have 24 hours in each day. So I realized that this is actually a clock. We're starting off with C, and that's 514 hertz. Then we're going to 576, then 648, 685, 771, 864, 972, and 1028. And that each of these days of the week, Monday being Moon Day, actually shape of the letter C is the same as the moon as well. And you see all these kind of correspondences that are matching up along these lines, like Friday being Phi Day as well, the being Phi Day as well, the 5th day of the week. And the note there is G, which of course represents the throat chakra. So you can see each one of these. Monday is the root, the sacral, solar plexus, the heart, throat, pineal, crown, and then back to root again. And then you can see that even numerically, these also relate to each other, where 2 pairs with 7 to add to 9, right? 2 also pairs with 5 because 1 over 2 is 0.5 and 1 over 5 is 0.2. So then 3 pairs to 6, and 4 and 5 pair at the center of this wave, each of these becoming the wave of each week. Now, what this does is you look at it and then say, okay, well, what about the 60 minutes and the 60 seconds within each minute? And what we're really looking at here is an amplitude of astrological and astronomical conjunctions, obviously, that then form musical notes. And these musical notes are accomplished within this. This also mirrors the prime number pattern.
This is, as a world first, these are the actual frequencies that you're going to hear of this new tuning. Now, it doesn't sound like much, but to me, this is insane next level, because this is changing music theory as we know it. It's changing harmony as we know it. We're going to have to create new instruments for this tuning to work. And man, I'm doing a deep dive. I'm all in. You watch. The sounds and music that we can create from this is out of this world. Out of this world beauty, guys. So just this tuning, it has all the days of the week calculated in it, the primary colours of the colour spectrum, which line up with the Bio-Vortex-Nodes. It has the degrees of the compass, time itself in the 12 and 24, and the tonal frequencies are derived from geometric perfection. Now, next slide. These are the frequencies of the chakras. We have the exact frequencies, and It's all changed now. It's all changed. The old frequencies were getting a little bit, but this is just hitting it bang on. This is not public yet, what you're seeing, and I won't make this public until Tony launches it on his website, and then I'll drop it in the chat and I'll make it public. But I've given you the frequencies, and if you put 2 and 2 together, you can sort of work things out. All right, we conclude with my good friend, Matthew Ferguson. This guy is a percussion genius based from Perth, Western Australia. And I had the honour and privilege of studying with Mr. Ferguson back in the late 1990s when I was at the Western Australian Academy of Performing Arts doing my double bachelor's. And Matthew Ferguson, he was doing a commercial degree in percussion where they had to do a jazz 2-year component. So the guy is very talented. Anyway, when I put the pedal down on my piano, I noticed sounds that were just out of this world. And I started recording and I thought, I just don't have the percussive experience. So I said, Matt, can you come over and play my piano recording? Matt is not, he can play the piano, but he's a percussionist. So I go, I want you to play on my piano like the sounds on earth that have never been released before. So you're hearing new sounds. I said, I want to put the pedal down and you just tap around, figure things out and just come up with something. And this was one take, and Matt has, we're not touching any piano keys, and he's added motive structure, time changes, and guys, it's based on the low E string taps. I've overdubbed the harmony there. 81.03 hertz in precise temperament. Enjoy.
A round of applause for that collaboration between Matthew and Shannon there. And that takes us right to the end. That is the wrap up of Now Sound 2.0 2023. That's everything. Let's have one more last big round of applause for Shannon. You guys are free. Go and enjoy the bar.